Hi, I'm Margaret.
And I'm Janie.
Welcome to Facts and Frivolities. Since this is the first real episode, we will not give a rundown of how it's going to work every single time because that would get repetitive and annoying. But since this is the first time, what we're going to do is Janie and I have both brought a topic that's just been living in our brains rent-free for an undisclosed amount of time, and we're going to put it rent-free in your brains too.
You're welcome. Maggie's topic today is one of my favorite topics ever.
Just mine too, which is good.
To talk about, to watch, to live.
So you're welcome for the experience we're about to give you. Should I introduce my topic?
I think you should.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the title of my presentation is Why is Real Housewives of Salt Lake City so good? I'm not explaining what elements in Real Housewives of Salt Lake City make it a great show. I'm explaining what elements outside of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City had to exist to make Real Housewives of Salt Lake City the best Real Housewives show.
Which it is.
Which it is. And the answer is Mormonism.
I also think the answer is a little bit of lead, but
Mormonism and lead poisoning from the Great Salt Lake.
Little column A, little column B.
2/3 of the original cast of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was Mormon, which is not like huge considering Salt Lake City was founded by the Mormons. So having any non-Mormon diversity is actually pretty impressive. Most of them were not actually active Mormons. None of them, Lisa Barlow, are actual Mormons. Lisa Barlow calls herself a Mormon.
She sells tequila.
She owns a tequila brand. You simply cannot be a Mormon and own a tequila brand.
Between Real Housewives of Salt Lake and Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, do you think that you can be, like, just how you can be culturally Jewish and religiously Jewish?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can be culturally Mormon and religiously Mormon,
Yeah.
and the two are not mutually exclusive. They're like...
Yeah. Whitney Rose and Heather Gay are both ex-Mormon, and they started the show ex-Mormon. But they are still culturally Mormon. Like, they are of, like, pioneer stock, which is, like, the people that came over from the East Coast to Salt Lake to start the Mormon theocracy, which was the goal of Utah at the beginning. That is, like, culturally Mormon.
Still referring to people today as stock is crazy.
That's, like, common cultural, like, I'm from pioneer stock.
No,
it's
I
like,
know.
That's my breeding. It wouldn't be with a southern accent, though, because they're in Utah.
That's my breeding.
That's my breeding.
Come on now.
Jen Shaw was also raised Mormon, although she converted to Islam for her husband, because her husband is Muslim. Lisa Barlow calls herself a Mormon, but she owns a tequila line. She does not wear her garments. She swears. She's on television.
She's a fucking cunt.
We don't like Lisa Barlow.
Fuck Lisa Barlow. Lisa Barlow, if you're listening to this, you're not from New York. You're from Schenectady, just like me, bitch.
My favorite is when Lisa Barlow says anything about being from New York, because she's not from the city.
She's from the same part of New York I'm from.
She's from, like, New York.
We have mutual friends on Facebook. Girl, you're not that cool.
And then the two fully non-Mormon members of the cast were Meredith Marks, she's Jewish, and Mary Cosby, who is running a cult, a different cult.
Definitely.
It's for sure a cult. Okay, so some Mormonism 101, just to get back into the history. Now, Mormonism is a special interest of mine. I am not Mormon. I do not have any pioneer stock in my ancestry. I'm from California, and I had Mormon neighbors growing up, and that is what got me onto the Mormonism train. They had 6 kids, and they had kids that were all our age, because they had so fucking many of them. It took a while for them to tell us they were Mormon, like, because we were little kids. They were just not allowed to play on Sundays. We went to church, but then we would just come home and play. And so we would go over to the Ostler's house and be like, no, we can't play today. And it took, like, months for them to finally be like, we cannot play any Sunday. That is, like, the first time that I was like, that's weird that they're not allowed to play on Sundays. I should become deeply invested in this. So, Mormonism is a high-demand religion that was started by the famous con man Joseph Smith. And it is, like, not negotiable whether or not Joseph Smith was a con man. He was arrested for conning people before he started a cult. He was also arrested for conning people after he started a cult, but he was arrested for conning people before he started a cult. He used a rock in a hat to find treasure. He would put a special rock in a hat and then look in the hat and find buried treasure.
Yeah, but how did he con people?
It didn't work. The rock in the hat.
It would have worked on me, I think.
Well, it would have worked on you. So Joseph Smith actually started the Mormon church on the East Coast. They moved around a bunch. We're not going to go into all of their migrations. He was eventually killed in Missouri. If you ask a Mormon, he was martyred for practicing Mormonism because the people of Missouri hated the Mormons. The reason the people of Missouri hated the Mormons is because the Mormons started their own militia They swore oaths to kill people that were not Mormon.
Every church has that, no?
No. Then Joseph Smith started marrying underage girls, many of them, and practicing polygamy in secret. This came out in a newspaper. It was only printed one time because after the newspaper printed, Joseph Smith ordered the printing press to be destroyed. He was arrested. Then an angry mob did come to the jail and he was killed. Then the Mormons flee from Missouri to Salt Lake. This is where sort of our story begins. Salt Lake is extremely isolated. You have mountains on one side, you have the Great Salt Lake on the other, and you have desert on the other side. It is very hard to get from the East Coast to Salt Lake in the 1800s. They literally walked with hand carts all the way, and many, many people died. They also massacred people on the way. We don't have to get into that. They were killing people. They were bad people. They were dying. At this point, Brigham Young, who is the new leader of Mormonism, wants to start a theocracy. That is the plan. It's to move your people to a very isolated place that is no longer part of the U.S. This is currently a territory, and start a theocracy. And then you get hundreds of years of fucking weirdos living in Utah. And then you get Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Woo! Some things to know about Mormonism. They did not grant full access to the church to black saints, they call themselves saints, until the 1970s. The only reason that they granted full access to black saints in the 1970s is because other football teams were refusing to play BYU. And that is what ultimately got them to change. Women still take a subservient role in the church. Women cannot be leaders in the church. The highest you can be is a leader of the Relief Society, which is basically the women's group.
Women are obviously held to this standard where like they're the mothers, they take care of the children, all of that. Women are not allowed to bless babies. Men have to bless the babies. Women can't do it.
There's a ritual in Mormonism called baby blessings. And it's like, they do baptism at 8.
We did dedication at my church, so it's a very similar idea. I think a lot of churches have a way of being like, this baby is in our church.
Yeah, the husband or the father has to decide the baby should get a baby blessing, and only he can give the blessing, or other male members of the family. And it is a very appearance-based religion. It is very much like, if you are good, if you are without sin, it will be reflected in monetary and physical things. So if you are rich and pretty, you're probably good and happy. And if you are poor and ugly, it's probably because you sinned and it's your fault.
Being black is a sin.
Yes, yeah. So they believe that being black is a punishment for sin. So when we start the show, the ones that are leaving Mormonism are very early in their journey with leaving Mormonism. Heather Gay's entire storyline for at least the first 3 seasons.
4.
Still now, kind of.
5.
How many seasons are there?
I don't know. However many seasons there are, that is how many seasons it has been Heather Gay's storyline that she is leaving the Mormon church.
Yeah, she is just leaving the Mormon church, just starting to leave at the beginning of the show. And you can tell that it really wasn't her decision. Like, life decided around her. She got divorced. She was no longer perfect Mormon housemaker. And
she's kind of like ostracized.
Right. Yeah. And sort of the scales fell away from her eyes once she sort of saw that, like, once she doesn't fit perfectly into the box, it no longer works. Whitney left the Mormon church over a cheating scandal because she and her current husband cheated on their spouses with each other. I believe she worked beneath him as well.
I believe so too.
Yeah. Like I said, appearances very much matter in the Mormon church. I wouldn't say that this is like written in the Book of Mormon anywhere, but it's certainly a cultural belief that if you are pretty, it is because you are godly. Utah has the highest rate of plastic surgeons per capita of any other state in the US. Heather Gay owns multiple med spas. That's where all of her money is from. And she is very, very successful. Med spas are a huge business in Utah. And of course, her med spa is famous because that is the scene where we learned that Jen Shah was being arrested by the feds. She was not there. People say that Jen Shah was arrested at the Beauty Lab and Laser parking lot. She was not. She was informed she was about to be arrested in the Beauty Lab and Laser parking lot, and she fucking dipped.
In a sprinter van.
In a sprinter van. And she skedaddled, and then she was arrested on her way home from the sprinter van.
Why was she arrested?
For defrauding the elderly. Mormonism also teaches that righteousness and sort of goodness is rewarded with stability in a happy family. So if your family falls apart or your life is no longer stable, again, this is your fault.
Yeah, no, I was raised to believe that as well.
Yeah,
I still believe that, in fact.
For someone who wasn't raised in a high demand religion, these things are insane. For someone who was raised in a high demand religion, these things are very normal. And Mormonism has like an ingrained social hierarchy within it, right? So if you're from pioneer stock, you can be like Mormon royalty. A lot of the Mormon leadership comes from pioneer stock. It's not technically passed down within families, but it's definitely, the power is kept within certain families. Both Heather Gay and Lisa Barlow's husbands are part of old pioneer stock families that have connections to leadership and that sort of thing. They have a ingrained social hierarchy because Lisa's husband is, the Barlows are slightly older of a family. The Barlows are, like, that's a name you see a lot in Mormon history and a lot in polygamist history. The Barlows are some of the ones that broke off, so there's a lot of Barlows that are still practicing polygamy today. But it's an old Mormon family. So in the early seasons, you see Heather really striving to be friends with Lisa. Part of it is Lisa does just have like a cool girl vibe.
Because of that cultural standing, she does lead the group as well.
Right.
She has a place of leadership
right
in the friend group.
Yeah, and Heather was no longer part of that pioneer stock family because she was divorced. So she was really striving to like be accepted back in with these families. And that's like all this underlying context. Heather's not saying Lisa's husband's family is really important to Mormonism, but they are. And you see it a lot with Heather, like trying to keep up appearances while her life is no longer perfectly Mormon anymore. She had identified as the perfect Mormon homemaker for so long that now that this is gone, she's lacking identity. And I think we even see that now, however, 6-7 seasons later, when she really doesn't like if you asked Heather, I don't think that she would say she's still struggling with her Mormonism or her Mormon identity, but I do think her lack of confidence in herself and who herself is reflects on how like wishy-washy and annoying she can be on the show.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think Heather has a sense of who she is.
You can tell Heather Gay very much still struggles with determining her own moral compass.
Yeah.
Because she no longer has a moral compass that was given to her.
Yeah.
I feel like this is bad, or I feel like this is good, but like I'm not sure I know why.
Right.
And I think that that's good, but maybe it's bad.
Like
you can see that.
Even in the most recent episode that we watched, Whitney and Bronwyn were talking about romantic relationships they'd had with women. Either Heather or Bronwyn said something about them being the only two that had ever had experiences with women. And under her breath, Heather goes, yeah, because we have morals. Heather, you used to be my favorite.
Watching Heather does very much remind me of myself when I was like 21.
Yeah.
I went through a crazy period after I left the church. Before I really like figured out what I believed, I was a fucking mess. I was just bobbing around, not sure what the hell I was doing. And that's what Heather Gay does.
Most people that aren't raised in high demand religions, they're learning that when they're like teenagers. Right. You're learning who your sense of self is. But if you're a teenager and you're just given a strict set of rules,
you're not allowed to have a sense of self.
Right. Then once you shed those rules, you're behaving like a teenager. But now you're an adult and it's no longer appropriate. And then we have Whitney. She had a very similar experience where she was forced out of the church, but she seems to have really like embraced the other side where she's she really went wild, and she did kind of do like the wild as much as you can as like a mom party girl thing. And she ends up getting her husband fired from his job because they do a sexy chocolate painting scene, which
it wasn't sexy.
No, it wasn't. They were like doing chocolate body paint, but he worked for a Mormon-owned company, and they did this on television, and he lost his job.
Yeah.
And then he was bored, so he took over her company and tanked it. Because again, they're fucking conditioned to listen to men. So now the setting. Salt Lake City. It is a weird place. I used to be a sales rep, and I covered 5 states, and one of the states I covered was Utah. And I called on the church, and I covered Utah. And the people are generally lovely. Like, generally, it is, like, a really, like, people are super friendly. Like, it's the Rocky Mountain West.
Okay, people are very friendly, but Maggie did get an anonymous letter sent to her work saying that she doesn't like Salt Lake City enough to be a representative there.
That's true, but also we were being stalked at the time.
We were being stalked. It was all, like, they were trying to get us fired for
We
being
should talk about our
polyamorous.
stalking. Ooh, we're going to talk about our stalking on Patreon.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Maybe that should be our first Patreon episode.
Oh, that would be fun.
Okay, so Salt Lake is very strange. Like I said, it was established as a theocracy. Brigham Young was honestly just a frustrated city planner. The man had so many thoughts about how a city should be planned, which is why when you get to Salt Lake, it's kind of weird because like the streets are too wide. The streets are something like 10 carriages wide or something like that because that's what Brigham Young wanted. All of the streets lead to the Salt Lake Temple, and they're all numbered. Some of the streets have names, but the main streets in Salt Lake are all just numbered street, like instead of names, they're like a string of numbers, and the numbers relate to how close or how far they are from the temple.
That
Confusing.
feels like a Nancy Drew file sorting game.
And Salt Lake City, even though it was no longer allowed to be a theocracy once it joined the United States, it really still was. Like, the Mormon church was really the power of Utah up until our generation. Like, it's really been our generation where people are leaving in droves. Like, Gen X and millennials are leaving in huge swaths. So is Gen Z. But they're not leaving Salt Lake. They're just leaving the church. So they're now secularizing their hometown, but only because they're culturally Mormon and staying in their cultural home and changing it that way, not because like the Mormon church is becoming more secular or anything like that. And because you have weird, very specific Salt Lake culture, you have things like the women dressing up as pioneers regularly because of events like Pioneer Day, which is a holiday in Utah that celebrates the Mormon pioneers. There is also an alternate holiday for non-Mormons called Pie and Beer Day, where you just eat pie and drink beer.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And you get lots of weird cultural things, right? So they can't drink coffee because of the word of wisdom. The Mormon church forbids coffee. Technically, the word of wisdom only forbids strong drinks and hot drinks, but you are allowed to drink something like Monster, and you're not allowed to drink something like an herbal tea. It doesn't make any sense. However, if you've watched The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you know that they do ketamine.
Yes.
Because it's allowed by a doctor. You don't get Botox with laughing gas anywhere in the country except for Utah. And it is partially because if you're being a good Mormon, you can't access things like pot or alcohol, but you can go to the doctor and get your Botox. And if the doctor recommends laughing gas while you get your Botox, well, then that's a doctor recommended medication, and that's not a drug anymore. That's why prescriptions are abused so heavily in Utah, is because if a doctor gave it to you, then it's not abuse. You can take as much of it as you want.
Meredith Mark's Xanny addiction is a storyline this season.
And she's not even Mormon. And it's not just the current Mormons who use these weird loopholes. If you're ex-Mormon, but you've been raised in a culture of total abstinence and everything, including coffee, is bad, then you don't have any sort of healthy relationship with substances. And you see that, like, again, even this season, Heather's been out of the church for how long? And she's still getting wasted on yachts and screaming at Lisa Barlow. And these women drink. Their drinking has been storylines. Heather had a long storyline about getting a black eye that she says she doesn't remember getting it. I genuinely believe she doesn't remember getting it. I also believe Jen Shaw gave it to her, and I think that she thought that maybe that's what happened and was protecting Jen. Like, I don't want to get Heather off completely.
You think the two are true?
I think both are true. I think that she doesn't fully remember what happens, and also Jen gave it to her, and she was trying to cover for her because she was pretty sure. And that is my presentation. And I do have a little disclaimer that if you are upset about anything I said about Mormonism or the Mormon Church or Salt Lake City here today, I urge you to think about the climbing rate of teen suicide in Utah and the direct connection it has to being raised within the sex-negative, anti-LGBTQ, anti-women environment that the Mormon Church cultivates. Also, I didn't put it in there, but extremely fucking racist. And if you really love Salt Lake City, I spent a lot of time there, and I do actually really like the city. Utah is beautiful. Everyone should visit Utah. It is stunning. Park City is amazing. But Salt Lake is fucking weird, and Mormons are fucking weirdos.
Amen.
Amen. And now, time for a commercial.
Hey guys, so we made merch.
We have merch now.
It's pretty much the only way we can make money on this.
Yeah, but it's also really cute.
So if you're interested in any of our merch, it's available at factsandfrivolities.com.
We'll see you there.
Today, I would like to solve the male loneliness epidemic.
No big deal.
No big deal. This topic started because we were making fun of the male loneliness epidemic. And there was somewhere in town that was like doing clubs specifically to prevent the male loneliness epidemic or something. And Maggie and I were like making a joke about it. And our husband was like, hey, maybe potentially the reason these men feel so lonely is because when they go out to do things, women like you are making fun of them. And we were like, okay, maybe that's fair. I did a presentation to prove that it wasn't fair. The male loneliness epidemic is social isolation and a lack of close friendships, a decline in close male friends specifically, difficulty forming and maintaining these deep connections, reluctance to seek help or express vulnerability. We're familiar with this. We've seen all of this in men. We're used to men. We know what they're like. Statistics show a steeper decline in male friendships and higher rates of reported loneliness among men, especially in the younger generations. Why is this happening? Obviously, traditional masculinity.
Boo.
Boo. Social and societal expectations, which stem from traditional masculinity.
Boo.
Declining social structures, which are derived from traditional masculinity.
Boo.
The manosphere and misogyny.
Boo.
Health, economic, and educational concerns.
Boo.
How are we to interpret this? So we know that there is shit happening, and we know that men aren't making friends, and we know that the two are correlated. So what do? We can say option 1 is society has fostered an environment to keep men lonely.
That's not true.
Okay, well, what's option 2? Men let their egos get in the way of deep personal connections.
That is true.
What about men don't know how to be good friends?
That is also true.
Or good people.
Also true.
So I took all of this and I thought a little bit more, and I took it to the next level. I think the option is men have built a society where power is prioritized and socializing is undervalued. So they're now suffering the consequences of their own actions.
That sounds fair.
Example, well, we were talking about clubs earlier, but the decline in clubs is directly tied to the decline in democracy. Do you know how many women are likely to be in a club versus how many men?
No, I don't actually.
It's like a 7-to-1 ratio.
We were specifically mocking an event. First of all, it was a Christian event.
Yeah, I feel like that's worth mentioning.
Right. And it was in a park, and it was men getting together in a park to have a man club. Like, it was called like Anti-Man Loneliness Club.
What are you going to talk about?
Just get a fucking hobby.
Get a hobby.
Make friends, find a hobby. If your hobby is being a man, that's the problem.
If all you have to talk about is how lonely you are, you're not going to make friends. So we know men are suffering the consequences of their own actions. However, they are still suffering.
Right.
The consequences of their own actions suck.
And when they suffer, we suffer. So we got to fix this.
So how are we going to fix it? Looking into this, there's a lot of proven ways that women have been doing for centuries to make sure that we are not isolated and abandoned and lonely. These include things like social outreach and engagement, clubs and groups, which we've already talked about, prioritizing emotional well-being, so things like therapy and meditation and mindfulness.
Could not be them.
Creating plans for reaching out to people, so setting calendar alerts, sending notes to people, even thank you cards, things like that can help with isolation. But also pursuing hobbies that may have social elements. And then also just promoting a culture of support and connections. Your focus is not, I want to be less lonely. Your focus is, I want to make sure no one else feels this way.
Right.
We can do all of this.
Those are the good things.
Those are the good things. Or we can think outside the box. I personally think that I have found the solution to the male loneliness epidemic. And that is, men need to struggle more. They do. They have created a society where they don't have to struggle enough, and now they're suffering the consequences of their own actions.
Yeah.
So I have decided that the way to do this is mandatory group suffering. I believe that all male-identifying people must complete one of the following tasks each year in order to receive their tax code for that year. Not participating in the mandatory group suffering will result in tax fraud.
Tying it to taxes is so funny.
The maximum punishment for a defendant convicted under what this tax fraud would be is 5 years in federal prison, a $100,000 fine, or both.
Seems reasonable. Yeah.
And this will affect their credit score as well. If they do not do the group suffering, their credit score will automatically drop by 78 points.
Fuck.
Here are some options.
So many points.
It's so many points, but they have a lot of options for group suffering.
Right, yeah.
I created many options for them. They're not limited to one.
It's
They get to
easy.
choose. And this way, by choosing, they will be placed into groups with people who are more like them because they also chose that.
Beautiful.
So here are our options. Wilderness camps. We've all been there.
Wait, no? Like the ones, like, do we kidnap them in the middle of the night type of wilderness camp? Okay, cool. I'm down.
Next, quilting class. I don't know many men who could sit through a quilting class. I can.
I can't.
The last time I went to a quilting class, I ended in tears with a stocking sewn half inside out. So I think that they should have to deal with that too.
That also might just be a skills issue on your part.
Okay, let them do it. If they quilt together, they'll be less lonely. Also, we have DMV field days. So these, of course, are days where they go to the DMV and just stay there all day with their counterparts, their male counterparts. We have saturation diving. This one is my personal favorite because they do have to use helium, which means that their voices will go like this. And I think that they deserve that. For like a month, their voices will sound like that. It's great. So saturation diving.
Okay.
They're also stuck in a small room in saturation diving, which of course will help with male loneliness.
Right. Because they will never be alone.
Yeah. Makeup artist school. I obviously there are men who are makeup artists and they're very good at it. I want men who have never touched a makeup brush in their life to go and try to get their certification.
I feel like male makeup artists are not the men who are complaining about the male loneliness epidemic.
Right.
I feel like those are two different demographics.
Yeah. Blood donations can go like every 6 to 8 weeks. So they would have to keep up with it. They would have to give as much blood as humanly possible to make their existence beneficial in the country. But I think that they could do it.
One of the worst men I ever dated routinely, on a calendar, gave blood as often as he could, but it was so that he could get a free STD test.
Okay, wait. How do I get a free STD test? I've never
been
offered one.
That's what he told me. It must have been like whatever one in Denver that did it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Honestly, smart. Next, we have driving lessons. These are going to be specifically defensive driving lessons.
Okay.
So they're going to be beneficial for the whole world.
How do I sign you up?
Rude. I have already taken a defensive driving class because I had points on my license and that helped.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. And then the last option for mandatory group suffering is just they all have to sit in a room together and someone will just tell them facts and they're not allowed to correct the facts. The fun thing about this is all the facts are going to be true.
Right.
They're going to be correct.
Right.
But it's still going to be suffering and torture for the men.
Yeah.
We love it.
That's true.
If we want to take a more serious approach at this, there are ways to solve the male loneliness epidemic genuinely. Like if men are actually genuinely concerned about the male loneliness epidemic and they want to put an end to it and they don't want to just be less lonely, they want to actually help other people as well. There's quite a few options here for it. So these include things like ratifying the ERA, working for equal pay or a universal income, free and equal education, mental health services, taxing religious institutions, legalizing sex work, supporting local communities, pointing out inequalities, and using gender-neutral items and terms. All of these things have been proven to help men. They also help women, though, unfortunately.
So unfortunately, we can't have that.
So probably none of this will ever happen, but all of these things have been proven to help men and will help in the male loneliness epidemic. So essentially, the solution for male joy, the solution, how we are going to end the male loneliness epidemic, either men have to suffer more or men have to embrace intersectional feminism. Probably they will choose the suffering.
They will most certainly choose the suffering.
I am a certified man hater, unfortunately. I recently lost a friendship because a friend's husband thinks that I hate men too much.
She recently lost 4 friendships. Maybe that'll be a Patreon episode.
Right. Find out why I hate men and why men who think I hate men make me hate men more on Patreon.
And also hate a handful of women.
Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing more, check us out on pretty much all socials, everything but LinkedIn.
Yeah, don't find me on LinkedIn.
Please don't find me on LinkedIn.
I do create content on LinkedIn, but I don't want you to find it, and that's true.
We are on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Patreon. Probably that. Those are probably it.
By the time this is out, we will have a Patreon episode up.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is yet.
Well, no, we figured it out earlier.
Right. What is it?
I don't remember. I'll have to watch this and find out.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.